They shaved his head, broke his pride, and threw him into a barracks where silence was a weapon and secrets bled faster than wounds. Reed thought he could survive by keeping his head down, but one photo exposed what head buried deepest. Rumors spread, torment followed, and only one man stood between him and collapse. Staff Sergeant Maddox. Cold, precise, untouchable, yet every order, every glance, every touch carried something forbidden. In midnight corridors and punishing drills, discipline turned into a dangerous rhythm, and the line between command and desire thinned to nothing. When a planted bullet threatened Reed's career and an anonymous complaint targeted Maddox, both men faced a truth no training prepared them for. Their bond was real but deadly. In a world built to break him, Reed discovered the most terrifying question of all: was Maddox saving him, destroying him, or secretly wanting him just as much? And when the walls finally closed in, which one of them would dare to cross the line first? They shaved my head at dusk, and the buzzing stayed in my bones. Fort Moore felt less like a place and more like a command. Move faster, speak less, become something steel can't bend. My name tape sat crooked on a uniform that didn't know me yet. The boots were too clean. The barracks smelled like detergent, metal bunks, and the nervous kind of sweat. The older cycle lounged with that loose menace of men who already knew the next 5 mistakes I'd make. A duffel thumped my ribs as I climbed to the top rack. Tourist, a voice said. I stayed quiet. Here, words cost energy, and energy is the only currency that matters. Lights out snapped. 40 strangers pretended to sleep and listened to one another not sleeping. Staff Sergeant Maddox didn't storm in, he arrived. New blood, he said. Tomorrow you'll learn how much work it takes to stop being whoever you were. He walked the aisle, boots whispering on concrete, and stopped at my bunk. Name, Reed, Staff Sergeant. You chose the high rack. He let silence sit until it gained weight. You fall, you bleed, you stain my floor. Don't stain my floor. Yes, Staff Sergeant. Morning was an alarm that dug its nails into my spine. We sprinted to the line, learned the geography of shouting, and learned pain had a schedule. Push-ups were a language, my body spoke it badly. On the track, sweat turned my shirt into a confession. I kept pace until I didn't. When I stumbled, the formation swallowed me and carried on. Reed, Maddox said, suddenly beside me, not out of breath. On your feet? Aye, on your feet, I rose. He stared until my knees remembered their job. You want mercy, he said quietly. Mercy is for after. Move, I moved. By noon I knew the taste of metal you get when lungs argue with pride. We formed up for lockers. Inspection. Staff Sergeant Klein barked. Cheerful executioner to Maddox surgeon. Doors slammed. Boots clicked. I had folded everything in the books order tight, crisp, obedient. When I lifted my towel, something slid free and hit the floor. A photo. Sunlight at the corner, 2 guys shoulder to shoulder, one of them me. It waste and explicit it didn't need to be. Ortiz bent, cat quick, and held it up like treasure. What's this, tourist? He said, voice tilting sweet. Brother, buddy, a few laughs. Klein stepped, smiling. Maddox watched. It's mine, I said, too fast. My mouth went dry. Read the note, Ortiz said, because of course there was a note on the back. My handwriting had betrayed me months ago. Private, Maddox said, and the room listened. He held out a hand. The photo crossed the air and disappeared into his. He looked once, flipped it, Reed. His face didn't change. Klein chuckled. We running a romance club now. Maddox didn't look away. Sergeant Klein, we are running an inspection. He put the photo back in my locker, precise, as if placing a tourniquet. Then to me, Reed, you just volunteered to demonstrate discipline. Staff Sergeant, front-leaning rest, the floor met my palms. Count your push-ups, he said. I counted. At 20, numbers blurred. At 40, my arms filed complaints. At 55, my shoulders quit. He crouched beside me, close enough that I felt the edge of his breath on my neck. You want to be small, he said softly, just for me. Good instinct. Be small in the right way. Hide your noise, not your lungs. I nodded and nearly face. Planted. He stood up. I rose on legs that hadn't signed off on the plan. The room went quiet in a new way, the way crowds get when they sense a rule they didn't know existed. Ortiz grin shrank. Klein's didn't know where to land. Locker closed, Maddox said. Inspection complete. Formation in 60 seconds. If you're late, you're early for regret. Outside, heat pressed like a hand. We moved because moving was simpler than thinking. The photo sat back in the dark, ready to become a rumor. I felt its gravity, his words weighed more. That night the lights snapped off like a verdict, the barracks turned into careful breaths. I lay awake with a coin-sized terror on my chest, who had slipped a note under the door, and the room had read it. A zipper hissed. I counted down from 100 and arrived at the same fear every time. A flashlight bloomed low, a quiet moon sliding across the floor to my boots, up the ladder, onto my blanket. Reed, Maddox said, voice accurate as a ruler. I climbed down. Bare feet hit cold concrete like a signature I couldn't erase. We stood in the aisle's thin privacy. He kept the light on my hands. You will keep that photo in the envelope I just put in your locker, he said. You will not give them a game to play with your life. Yes, Staff Sergeant, you will also run like you mean it. Am not saving you again. He turned a degree, and the light drifted off my knuckles. Reed, Staff Sergeant, a half-breath, don't stain my floor. It should have sounded like a threat. It felt like a boundary he drew around me, thin as thread, strong as wire. The flashlight winked out. Darkness folded back over the room. I climbed the ladder and lay still, seeing the afterimage of a coin of light and the outline of a man who didn't save me exactly, but didn't let me fall either. In the morning I would pay for whatever they decided my photo meant. But in that ribbon of night, with his words tucked into the same compartment as the picture, I felt something I hadn't felt since I arrived. Not safety, not misdirection. Morning punished everyone, but it punished me with purpose. Rumor outran cadence by chow. Photo had shrunk into a slur small enough for any mouth. Trays clattered, eyes learned a new path that detoured around me. The space they left felt colder than air. On the track, Klein said a death. March pace. I ran anyway. Breath in fours, out in force, math of survival. Ort is drifted beside me, all teeth. Tourist, he said, friendly as a push. I kept my gaze on the shirt ahead and lived inside that half-inch of fabric. Half a lap later my steps tangled. Maddox appeared the way a rule appears already true. Reed, he said without looking at me. Match me, he lengthened by the smallest degree. I tried to live inside that too. He didn't speak again. He didn't have to. When my lungs argued, he was a metronome. We finished. Hydrate. Klein barked. The word felt like grace with a price tag. In the bay, the envelope in my locker had been moved, 2 inches left, tilted. A message you can't touch your life without touching it. I corrected it with steady hands the room didn't get to see shake. Formation, Klein sang. We stood. Maddox walked the line and stopped 2 men past me. Uniforms lie, he said to the air. Habits don't. He never turned his head, and somehow he faced me. Weapon breakdown after lunch. The rifle had the patience of a teacher and the judgment of a priest. A forward assist sprang loose and clattered across the table. Klein smiled his fire. Alarm smile. Read theatrics. Maybe tape a picture to the stock. Help you focus. Snorts. Then Maddox's shadow arrived before he did. Sergeant Klein, he said even. Demonstration, readin' me. He led me to the end bench where the noise thinned. He touched the rifle first, not me. You don't force it, he said, voice low enough to be shared and not overheard. You align it. Steel respects alignment. The side of his knuckle nudged my palm heat, jumped skin to skin. A quick bridge eye, pretended not to cross. Try again. The part seated with a soft click. Better, he said. The word landed like a coin in an empty jar. The roster put us on fire guard, midnight watch in a building made of whispers. Ortiz peered at the sheet, performed surprise. How romantic, he said, waiting for me to rise to it. I didn't. He left hungry. I reported just before midnight. The office was a square of light cut out of the dark. Coffee steamed like a storm. Maddox didn't look up right away. When he did, the room remembered its posture. Sit. I sat. Metal chair. Unkind truth. Fire guard is simple, he said. You walk, you see, you log, you don't add poetry. Yes, Staff Sergeant, and you drink water. He slid a canteen across. Our fingers didn't touch. That felt louder than if they had. Minutes found a rhythm. I walked the corridor, counted doors, checked latches, returned. He initialed the log with a neat signature. On the 3rd round, a muffled scuffle bled through drywall. 3 bunks, a sheet knotted to a belt buckle, laughter wearing cruelty. Ortiz held a pillow over a smaller guy's face, not hard, just enough to make the room crowd the air. Hey, I said, too quiet. Hey, Ortiz echoed, not moving. Maddox arrived without hurry and took the room by the spine. Hands off my training time, helping him sleep, Staff Sergeant, Ortiz smiled. Then you won't mind if we help you train." He didn't blink. "Read, with me, Bay 3. Drills in socks on cold concrete, push-ups, wall sits, low crawls that sanded elbows into lessons." Maddox counted slow. Sweat turned practical into moral. The smaller kid lang shook out a thank you when Ortiz wasn't looking. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure who he meant. When it was done, Maddox sent them to their racks with a sentence that sounded procedural and felt like a verdict. In the office, I logged the event. My handwriting improved under his silence. He poured coffee I didn't ask for. "You didn't escalate," he said. "You also didn't freeze. That road is narrow. Stay on it. I tried. Try harder tomorrow." He set his cup down. A small sound exact as a period. I should have left it there instead. They moved the envelope, I know. He didn't look surprised. They want your reaction more than your secrets. Give them neither how. Be boring about yourself and relentless about the work. He stood close enough that heat from his shirt reached my forearms. "Give me your hands." I did. He inspected my knuckles like a mechanic reading a history. "You grip from panic, grip from bone." He positioned my fingers, his thumb pressing the base of mine. I felt that pressure for longer than he kept it. My breath miscounted. He noticed and pretended not to. "Better," he said again, formal and undeserved. "We finished the shift with the kind of quiet that isn't empty." At 0300 he dismissed me. At the door he spoke without turning. "Read, Staff Sergeant, you can run with me at 0530, or you can run with them." A pause. "Choose your weather. I'll be there." He nodded at something the room couldn't see. I stepped into a corridor that finally allowed a draft. In my locker the envelope waited where I had left it. I placed the photo inside, closed it, and for the first time since the shaving, I slept. Wake up came like a hammer with good aim. At formation, I found my place behind a shadow that kept time with a metronome heart and matched it half inch by half inch until rumor had to jog to keep up. The morning run was a kind of covenant. Maddox never looked back, but he set the pace so exact it felt chosen for me. Each step was a quiet message. Keep up or don't bother showing your face again. My lungs screamed, but the scream steadied. The rest of the platoon blurred into background noise. The only thing sharp was the rhythm of his shoulders cutting the air. After formation, he didn't dismiss me with the others. "Read," he said low, "bay after chow." No more words. Orders don't need companions. The bay was half empty when I arrived. Maddox was there, sleeves rolled, hands bare. He held out a rifle, disassemble, quietly. I moved through the motions, but my fingers stumbled, clumsy under the weight of his nearness. He stepped behind me, close enough that the heat of his chest warmed the back of my neck. His voice was steady, patient. "You fight the steel, don't fight a line." His hand covered mine, adjusting the angle. The pressure was firm, not lingering, but my pulse betrayed me anyway. "Better," he murmured, the word brushing my ear like static. When the bolt seated with a clean snap, he didn't move away. I felt the pause stretch, long enough for my body to read it as something more than instruction. Then he stepped back, breaking it clean. "You'll train alone at night. Less distraction. Why me?" I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes fixed on mine, unblinking. "Because you still believe this place can break you." I don't. That night, fire guard again. Silence thickened the hallway. We walked side by side, boots soft on concrete. A generator hummed somewhere distant. He carried a flashlight, but never used it. "Cold?" he asked suddenly. "No, Staff Sergeant. You're shaking." I realized my arms trembled, not from weather but from something that lived under my skin. He noticed everything. He always did. He stopped at the end of the corridor where shadows swallowed the walls. "Hands," he said. I offered them. His fingers closed around mine, turning them upward, inspecting the scrapes. Then he did something reckless, brushed his thumb along the side of my palm, slow enough to feel the story of my pulse. "You're learning," he said, but the words carried a second meaning, heavier than the first. Our eyes locked. For a moment, rank evaporated, leaving only two men caught in a silence too sharp to survive long. His breath was warm, too close, carrying the bitterness of coffee. I wanted to move, to speak, to do anything, but my body stayed still, magnetized. Then, just as quickly, he released me. "Enough, patrol." His voice returned to steel. We walked the rest of the shift without a word, but the memory of his thumb on my hand lingered like heat long after he was gone. And when I lay back in my bunk, eyes on the ceiling, I finally admitted to myself what the others had guessed from the start. Something was happening between us, and it was more dangerous than any Drill, by morning the rumor had my name, or is let a line drop at Chowprivat Cotingend, the room laughed like it had been waiting. Klein stirred it with smiles. Maddox stayed silent, which from him felt like judgment. On the run he held a lane between us. Yesterday had been a pace, today he was a wall. I matched air and pretended it didn't matter. After drills our racks were flipped. Lockers gaped. The envelope was gone. Before I could move, Klein whistled. Inspection. Phones on the table. Devices stacked like small confessions. He lifted mine, asked for the code, scrolled, and stopped. He turned the screen so everyone could see. My photo, now a lock screen with a caption I hadn't written. 2 words, a dare. Heat ran up my neck. That isn't phones tell the truth, Klein said, and tossed it back like bait. The bay watched me try not to swallow it whole. Maddox spoke at last. Sergeant Klein with me, they went into the office. A thin door swallowed their voices. When they came out, Maddox's eyes slid past me. Read, he said, administrative, flat. Remedial pty this evening. Sergeant Klein will supervise. Pty bled me across the floor. Klein corrected my form with cheerful cruelty. You like attention, tourist. Imagine a crowd, he said to the empty bay. Push-ups blurred into a prayer no one heard. Afterward I limped to the office for fire guard briefing. Maddox stood inside, light hard on his face. Door, he said. The room shrank when I closed it. You let them take the envelope. They took it. You let them, he repeated. You gave them an opening and called it fate. I didn't change the photo, I said. Klein is not your problem. Your problem is that you are loud without speaking. You think in ways that leave footprints. He tapped the desk. I can't protect that. I won't try. The words landed like plates breaking. So you're done with me. There are consequences I can't stand between. You want a champion. I am an instructor. Last night you weren't. It escaped, small and dangerous. The air changed shape. He breathed once. Last night was a mistake. He looked at the doorway. We won't repeat it. Something inside me cracked. I nodded because there was nothing else to do with my head. He signed the log. You have patrol. Stay where you're supposed to walk. A beat. Leave your phone. I hesitated. His eyebrow raised. I set it on the desk. He locked it in a drawer. Policy performed like ritual. The corridor was colder than I remembered. On the second loop I passed Ortiz and 2 satellites, all teeth. Tough day, he said. Racks, I answered. They drifted. When I returned, the drawer was open, the phone lay face up. The lock screen was blank again. The caption had vanished like a dream you can't prove. Maddox folded his arms, eyes on the logbook. He didn't comment, neither did I. Dismissed, he said. Outside, the bay pretended to be peaceful. I sat on the step and watched my boots double. The run would come early. The day would ask for everything, then punish me for wanting something else. A footstep stopped behind me. I didn't turn. Read, he said, voice dry of anything soft. Yes, Staff Sergeant, the envelope is in your locker, 2nd shelf left under the spare socks. My throat worked around nothing. Yes, Staff Sergeant. If you keep it on your time. On my time you carry nothing that slows you. A pause. That includes me. He left. I found the envelope where head said. The photo was inside, corner bent, my handwriting intact. I pressed the crease flat with a thumb that wouldn't stop shaking, then put it back under the socks. When I lay down, sleep didn't come. The room breathed like a single animal. I stared at the ceiling and understood that wanting him had turned every hour here into thin ice. Whatever bond I thought we had wore a hairline fracture, I couldn't sand smooth. Tomorrow would test how far a crack could run before the whole sheet broke. Field exercise week hit like a storm that sent a memo first. Rucks loaded, weapons cleared. We moved before dawn toward woods the cotter called confidence training and rumor called blood sport. Klein briefed lanes with a cheerfulness that didn't fit. Navigate, communicate, don't die. Ortiz hovered near my elbow, orbit tight, smile loose. Maddox stayed with the instructors, eyes flat. By late morning the platoon was a broken necklace of squads threading timber. My team reached a draw choked with brush. Radio static flickered and died. We crossed single file on a slick log. In the middle, the world tilted. A hand touched the small of my backlight. Friendly, wrong and I dropped into cold water to the chest. The breath left me. I clawed to the bank. Mud kept the other half of the secret. Above, Ortiz made an O with his mouth. Careful tourist. Laughter skittered and hid. I got out soaked, shivering, teeth clicking anyway. Wet uniform dragged at my joints. Twice I stumbled. The second time my ankle rolled and fire shot up my shin. I walked anyway because there was nothing else that fit. At the rally point, Klein brightened. Reed swims now. Maybe water makes him faster. Maddox's glance was quick, surgical. Medical, he asked the air. Fine, I said, fooling no one. He didn't contradict me. Hydrate, he told the group, then to the lead. Swap Reed to trail. The next lane was loc, all through a trench that remembered other knees. Halfway, my vision narrowed to one task, keep moving and not shake. At the end, Maddox waited with a clipboard he didn't read. You're done for this block, he said. Gear down, shade, I can finish. You can make it worse. That isn't finishing. When the platoon cycled through, he drifted near. Stand, walk. We took a line past a berm to a strip of trees. No one followed. He turned. Just a man reading a problem. Boot, he said. I unlaced with clumsy fingers. He crouched and pressed along tendon and bone, clinical until it wasn't. His thumb lingered at the ankle, slid to the arch as if memory did the steering. Heat answered the chill. Sprain, he said. Low grade. He pulled an ace wrap from a pocket I hadn't seen. Foot up, he wound with patience. His wrist brushed my calf on the third turn. On the fifth, we both exhaled. This isn't the place, he said, voice lower than the leaves. I know. My breath vanished. I didn't fall. His eyes flicked a yes without consent. You want accuse, you will outwork, trying. Try meaner, he said, and taped the wrap flat with a palm that stayed a beat. Boot, when I stood, the world had edges again. He stepped closer, then stopped. His hand, rose-paws said, landed on my ribs, steady pressure. My heart climbed into it like a rung. Read, he said, almost warning, almost prayer. Voices approached. He stepped back into rank so fast the moment closed. Cadence in two, he called. Night lane spun up, red light, whispered checkpoints, leaders trading maps. At the far turn, a safety check flagged me, a blank round in my cargo pocket, not mine. Klein held it up between finger and thumb like a pearl. Contraband, safety violation, maybe intent, eyes turned. Orders studied the horizon with deep interest. It isn't mine, I said. Of course it isn't, Klein sang. Wonderful thing, innocence. Maddox's face made no promises. Remove raid from training, he said. Secure weapon. We sort it in the morning. Could sort it now, Klein offered. Article 15 loves a midnight snack. Now, Maddox said, final as a door. He walked me to the admin tent. Paperwork haunted clipboards. He tagged my rifle. When we were alone, he let out a breath he'd been holding since the trench. They are not subtle, I said. They don't need subtle. He looked at me like a terrain feature. You'll sleep here. You won't speak to anyone. In the morning we report and request a search. They planted it, yes, proving it is harder than knowing it. I lay on a stubborn cot. He stood in the doorway and looked at the night. You did good work, he said. You didn't ask for rescues. I wanted to, want quieter. He stepped back in, close enough that the fabric brushed his shoulder. Read, Staff Sergeant, if you run, run at 0530. If you break, break forward a beat. And if you think I don't feel this, you're not as observant as I trained you to be. His hand found my shoulder, brief, exact, the lightest pat that wasn't a pat. Warmth traveled farther. He left. At dawn, new rumor. Anonymous complaint to the commander, words like conduct, favoritism, boundary. The new threat wasn't orders, or Klein, or the round. It was the machinery that eats people. Maddox returned with a clipboard and a face he wore like armor. Search, he said, and witnesses came. They tore through my pack and found nothing new. Klein clicked his tongue, disappointed that the rabbit had eaten the trap. Reed returns to training, Maddox said to the group. Pending review. Pending review, Klein echoed, smiling like a cut under tape. Outside the platoon formed. I limped to my place, ankles singing anyway. When Maddox called cadence, I heard something under the numbers, a message meant for one person spoken to 40. Keep your feet, keep your mouth, keep your weather. I kept it, for another day at least. Rumor doesn't march its sprints. By the time the field cycle ended, my name was already a warning label. Words like favor, special treatment, night coaching rode the air. No one said Maddox's name, but every silence pointed at him. He carried himself the same calm, exact, untouchable, but in formation his eyes never landed on me, not even for the fraction of a second that used to pass like a coin between us. The distance hurt worse than the ankle. That night, fireguard again. The roster wasn't random. I knew who had written it. Maddox waited in the office, pen tapping against the logbook. He didn't look up, sit. I sat. The clock clicked too loudly. You know what they filed, he said. I heard. It says I compromised training. His tone was steady, but the word compromised cut like glass. They are lying. They don't have to tell the truth. They only have to tell a story people want to believe. He finally looked at me. Do you believe it? The question gutted me. No. My throat closed. But if you keep pushing me away, they'll win. He leaned back, eyes hard. This isn't about winning. This is about survival. Mine, yours, both. I don't care about survival if it means silence. The words left before I could cage them. I care about what's real. His jaw worked once, twice. Then he stood, walked to the door, and locked it with a click that felt louder than gunfire. When he turned back, the mask was gone. Real, he repeated. You want real. He crossed the room in 3 steps. His hand caught my shoulder, fingers tight, not tender. Real as this ends careers. Real as I've spent 12 years building a wall, and you're asking me to punch through it with bare hands. His forehead almost touched mine. His breath carried coffee and exhaustion. Real as I can't stop watching you run even when I should. I didn't move. My heart had already leapt into his grip. Then stop pretending, I whispered. For a beat, silence stretched like wire about to snap. Then he pressed his palm to my ribs, the same place he had steadied me before, but harder now, as if to feel the proof that I was alive. My chest rose into it without permission. Damn it, Reed, he said, low and broken. You don't know what you're doing. Neither do you, I answered. The clock ticked. His hand didn't move. For one suspended second, rank, rules, remorse, everything burned away, leaving only the raw gravity between us. Then he pulled back violently, like touching me had burned. He unlocked the door, voice flat again. Back to your post. I stood, but my legs shook. At the threshold I turned. His eyes followed, full of something fierce and unspoken. That night the rumor didn't matter. What mattered was the weight of his hand, the confession he hadn't meant to give, and the promise it carried. This wasn't finished. The review board never called my name, not yet. They let the rumor work slow, like rust. Days blurred into drills, runs, inspections. Maddox carried on as if nothing cracked inside him. To the platoon, he was precision carved from stone. To me, he was a silence that still remembered its own voice. On our last night of fire guard, the corridor was empty, humming with the sound of fluorescent light. He walked beside me, clipboard in hand. At the far end he stopped. You'll graduate, he said. If you don't trip yourself, and you, I asked. He almost smiled. It'll still be here. Walls don't move. The words should have ended it. Instead, they sharpened the air between us. I wanted to say what had lived in my chest since the night he pressed his palm to my ribs, but his face warned me truth spoken aloud could destroy us both. So I nodded, understood, Staff Sergeant. At the office door he paused. For a heartbeat his hand lifted, hovering near my shoulder, the gesture of a man who wanted to touch but couldn't. Then he let it fall, dismissed, Reed. I walked back into the barracks, heart heavy with everything unspoken. The photo lay in my locker, bent but still whole, a quiet reminder of who I was before all this. I slipped it deeper under my socks, not to hide it, but to keep it safe. Sleep never came. At dawn, formation formed like always. His cadence cut the air, strong and steady. Our eyes never met, yet I knew in some untraceable way we were still running the same pace. The bond hadn't broken. It had only gone underground, forbidden, alive, and that was the most haunting truth of all.